It's finally here. The last bit of Kamen Rider. The original series is here. Thank you for joining us. We have a healthy obsession with Kaiju. This is Go Kaiju Show. I am your co-host, Kent. With me is your other co-host, Jason.
I am Jason. How's it going, peeps?
We are the longest running Kaiju podcast in the history of Kaiju podcasting. We are called because we were just little giggly boys here prior to coming online. And no, we're not going to share as to why.
Yeah, it's best to not do.
And so we're here, Jason. This is the last of the Go-Go. I must say this is the last of the Go Kaiju Show. Last bit of Kamen Rider that we are covering, the final 6 episodes.
I feel like it's been 5 years in the making at this point, even though it's only been a year and a half of doing it.
I will say this, and this will somewhat preview my thoughts, which I kind of hate doing because I like to try to keep people on edge a little bit.
Well, I think they've already known in the past episodes.
But I'm glad we've had a few days between the time I watched the show, which I watched all 6 episodes on Tuesday, and the time we recorded, because it's provided me more time to calm down. And it's also provided me a little bit more time to just process everything. And I just kind of want to let people know in on something here. I realized this because I went back and I listened to the final episodes of when we covered Spectre Man and then Ultra 7. I realized with Ultra 7, I was really hard on it. I gave many episodes in that series an F. And I've given a lot of like passing grades to Kamen Rider. I would have to kind of go back and maybe rethink Ultra 7 a little bit. But I remember saying on that episode, Ultra 7 was a complete failure. Mm-hmm. My thoughts here tonight, I think, are going to mirror a little bit close to what my final thoughts on the Spectre Man series were. And we finished that up, I think a little over a year ago. I think.
Yeah.
And I realized as I listened to that, I'm like, wow, this is real crazy, because a lot of what at that time, what I was already thinking about with this Kamen Rider are similar to what I said about Spectre Man back when we wrapped it up. I'm like, that is really crazy. So, yeah, I will have to give some apologies to Ultra 7, not total. Ultra 7, I still will say, was not great in terms of its writing. However, we'll get into it in a little while. Yeah. I got to let my cat out. But in the meantime, while I do that, Jason, the housekeeping.
Yeah, if you see a subscribe button down below or above, wherever you're watching us from, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as well as smash the like button. And if you listen to the audio versions of our podcast episodes, we're available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Apple Podcasts, you name it. And you can find both video and audio episodes of our podcasts on our own website at gogokaijushow.com.
All right. So are we ready to dive in?
Yes, let's get this over with.
All right. So we are starting with episode 93, titled 8 Kamen Riders. Gel Shocker intensifies its assault by deploying multiple shock riders, evil doppelgangers of the original Kamen Riders. These imposters aim to tarnish the hero's reputation and sow chaos. Kamen Riders 1 and 2 confront these adversaries, leading to a climatic battle that tests their strength and unity. So, I I wished I would have taken notes again, because some of the things that I saw in these final 6 episodes kind of blur together now at this point. Plus, I asked people out there to forgive me if I mix up stuff, not just because I didn't write down notes, but also the last couple of days where I live have been pretty hectic. We had some strong storms over 2 consecutive nights come through our area and just kind of mess up our area.
One thing I'll add to this is that pretty much the 6 shocker riders only show up at the end, and they just kind of do a standoff.
They do.
That's a spoiler for this episode 93. Is that there's just really not much to it. Except you have Fly Trippy, and then this was it the Ray Poi Moth, which again, just gonna say it for the remaining 6 episodes that these shocker generals or gill shocker generals are pretty cool looking.
One of the things is this was the one too in which Tachibana was training the 2 riders to like run in circles real fast. This was the one, right?
It's either this one or the next episode.
Yeah, because again, and I apologize to everybody. Actually, no, it was. I don't believe. Actually, yeah, it might have been the next one. Because I'm starting to think a little bit more about it now. One of the things that really annoyed me, though, about this A Kamen Rider series, and it's towards the end in which the 6 gel shocker riders come out. They go one by one, 1 through 6, and go, with Shocker Rider 1, Shocker Rider 2. And I go, oh no, they're doing this. Like, they do 1 through 6. It was unnecessary and annoying what they did here.
And the, like, you can easily tell which one is which just by the color of the scarf, pretty much.
It just was ridiculous. Gosh, man. Like,
it almost looked like a Super Sentai versions of Kamen Riders, even though they've done crossovers in the past. And plus, they're both franchises are made by the same company, so I can understand why they kind of did some of that, because it reflects off of the Super Sentai stuff.
I just wish I could remember more of the details of the episode. I think notes would have helped, but I don't think it would have helped everything, just because considering we had strong storms again come through, I don't know if I would have been able to get everything done anyways, because my kids' school was canceled because their school had no power here yesterday. So I don't know if I would have gotten things done anyway. But so I ask everyone to like forgive me for my memory and stuff here, but like this episode was fine, but it was annoying with the shocker intros near the end. The shocker standoff really, they made a big deal out of it, obviously, with the title being 8 riders.
Yeah, to me, it's, I'd say the title is just sort of misleading because you never really see all of them in one shot standing off against one another right at the very end of this episode. And you only get to see Fly Trippy and Ray Boy Moss kind of doing most of the heavy lifting as far as doing some of the battles against Hongo and Ichibonji there. And then obviously the standoff with the Jill Shocker riders at the end. And I would say it's just a misleading episode.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I just asked ChatGPT to give me more detailed synopses, and it actually didn't do it. Like,
why even bother trying to get more information?
I know it doesn't
really
matter, but I really want to. I don't want to be like, okay, yeah, Kamen Riders. I hated the doppelgangers. Okay, let's move on. Like, I don't want to be. Ultimately, through coordination, trust. Okay, so yeah, they did. Okay, they did actually defeat those shocker writers in this episode. So the training, because I remember Tachibana training them, and I couldn't remember if it was this one or the next episode, but according to what I see here, it's this episode where Tachibana, and one of the most ridiculous things, is teaching Hongo and Ichimoji, I think is the other writer.
Ichimonji, yeah.
Ichimonji, to run in circles. Like, this somehow is supposed to, it seems like you need to say something.
Yeah, because episode 94, the shocker riders are still in the next episode. So I'd say I probably wouldn't trust GPT on this one.
Okay. So, then I will say that. Yeah, again, it's been a really rough week. We had severe weather and stuff, and I'm glad I at least watched them earlier in the week. It's just knowledge of them. I think there's a reason why I have a general idea of each episode, and that's about it.
One, he's old.
It's just stressful, but
yeah. Episode 93, I think, is just more or less a misleading sort of episode where when you think that there's going to be 8 Kamen Riders throughout this entire episode, there's really not towards the very end of it. And you have Flytropy and Ray Poimoth doing majority of the heavy lifting of doing some of the battles. And then, yeah. So, I don't know. You want to go on the final thoughts?
Yeah. It's fine. It really honestly didn't do much more in terms of now it's starting to come back to me a little bit where they play around with this so-called tape a little bit to try to figure out the identity of the Gel Shocker leader.
Yeah, the 1970s USB drive.
Yeah, and we find out more about actually, I think it's in the next episode where the imposter writer, changes himself into one of the anti-Gel Shocker Alliance leaders. Obviously, this episode must not have made much of an impression on me because I keep
obviously it has not.
I keep thinking more about the next episode, and I'm getting the two confused. I'm just, you know what? I'm just giving it an F. It doesn't make me remember it. It's not making me remember it. I'm having issues remembering this one, other than the fact that it annoyed the crap out of me that they did individual introductions to the writers. And you know what? I'm just going to come out and say it. I'm not going to really recommend this series. So,
yeah, and like I said, the title of this episode is fairly misleading because all the Gel Shocker writers come at the very end, and that's pretty much the end of the episode. So I gave this one a D-.
All right. So episode 94, the true identity of the Gel Shocker leader. The writers delve deeper into Gel Shocker's hierarchy, uncovering the enigmatic identity of its leader. No, they don't. Spoiler. As they confront this formidable adversary, shocking revelations come to light. No, they don't. Challenging their perceptions and strategies in their ongoing battle against evil. A garbage episode.
I would have to completely agree with you on this one.
Here's the thing.
Again, another misleading title for this episode.
Yeah. Let me just say this, though, too. This is the last episode we get up until the very last episode of this series, episode 98, where it's actually all about trying to go after the Gel Shocker leader, figuring out who it is, and ultimately defeat them. Because what happens now from episode 95 through 97 are run-of-the-mill Kamen Rider episodes.
Episodic.
Yes.
And spoiler, we never hear of the Anti-Shocker Alliance again.
No, we don't. And I think, well, we'll come to that here when we talk about the next episode here. We don't find out the identity of the leader here. One of the Anti-Shocker Alliance leaders puts in the tape and a piece of like film comes out. And, you know, I'm kind of like, oh, like, is this where we're going to find out Tachibana's the leader of like Gel Shocker or something like that?
Our series.
And all it is coordinates. It's coordinates to a hideout. And even then, it's not a hideout. It is a trap, which I can't remember because I know Imposter Kamen Rider got involved at one point. Did he switch the tapes out?
I
don't think he did, but I'm not sure. I know one blew up.
I think he might have at one point just to kind of show them. I don't think that. Thank you, though, bud. Because I think at one point he mentioned to them, you know, if you play this, it'll explode, and so he kind of replaced. He put that somewhere and then put in that dummy one to make it explode. Yeah.
Again, yeah. I mean, I'm not incorrect because I was starting to correct myself there by saying like, yeah, I think he changed him out. So in a way, it was pretty smart of the Imposter Rider. So I take back a little bit of the criticism I had here just a moment ago on it, but I do, I do damn the writers for naming this episode the way that they did. They could have just given it something different, or what they could have done is had the same title and then add a question mark at the end of it. Like that could have been done. Mm-hmm. But this hideout is a very small area, and there's 3 or 4 strands of aluminum foil just dangling from the ceiling.
And I got to mention about this particular hideout. When a production company just goes in half-ass with cloth, what does this remind you with?
I don't know, just a lot of bad tokusatsu.
Super Monster Gamera.
Oh, yeah. You can tell I haven't watched that in a while.
When it comes to this, you know they really ran out of money. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
really just really fast for cash. Yeah.
But this is the one.
You know it's going to be bad.
Yeah, well, and this is finally I get to talk about this. This is the one where Tachibana trains both riders to run in circles. And to defeat the 6 Gel Shocker riders, it's so stupid. And again, I understand it's a kid's show, but they literally, Hongo and Ichimonji, run around in opposite like circles, and they each get 3 of the Shocker riders following them, which is so stupid. Like, why didn't they either stop and like hit them, shoot them, whatever, as the riders are making fools of themselves running in a circle, or like cross the circle and like attack a rider. But nevertheless, what they do is they run around in this circle a couple of rounds, and then the 2 real riders jump up in the air. The Shocker riders follow them, and they just run into each other and blow up. Mm-hmm. It's stupid. It's, again, I understand it's a kid's show, but it's like, I can't even remotely be amused by this. It's so pathetic and lazy. I just like, this isn't even made for like 3, 4, 5-year-olds. This is, I would say the target audience probably at the youngest is like 7, 8, maybe 7, 8 crowd could get with it perhaps. But otherwise, I'm sure in reality, the average age of the kids watching this probably was ranging anywhere from like 10 to 13, more than likely. And it's like, it's so stupid. I just, it's just so stupid. Well, then, Ken, why are you wearing a Kamen Rider shirt? I will talk about all of that in a little while.
Well, we're in fact just celebrating that we're at the end.
There you go. We're gonna burn this when we're done here. No,
we're at the end of this whole show.
Yeah.
But yeah, such a misleading title and really like half-ass at the last minute put together hideout. And still don't even know who the Gel Shocker leader is at this point.
And you won't until episode 98, the very last episode.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to give this one an F.
I'm giving it an F too. I mean, you said earlier, we don't even see any more of the anti-Shocker Alliance.
Yeah.
We don't, which leads me to my theory. Before, I'm just going to hop over right now to episode 95. And before I do the synopsis here, I'm thinking, honestly, episodes 95 through 97 were filmed out of order. They were filmed earlier, and either like maybe they had issues with post-production of some sort. And then we're like, well, like we're towards the end of the series. We have to put them in this slot. But it's so whiplash inducing that 3 of these final 4 episodes are like, well, let me just do this. Excuse me, synopsis here.
Do it.
Called The Flying Car of the Monster Garrox. Gel Shocker introduces Garrox, a monstrous entity equipped with a flying car posing a new aerial threat. Kamen Riders 1 and 2 must devise innovative tactics to counter this airborne menace and prevent widespread destruction. So, I'll
say that Crowax or whatever his name is.
Garrox.
Well, according to the subtitles, they call him Crowax.
Okay. That's actually easier to say.
I was going to say pretty cool looking design.
I actually, for the first time, don't like this one.
Really?
Because he's got 2 sets of nostrils right next to each other. He's got the crow one here and then like the bull or ox one like down here. I'm like, why? Why do you need 2 sets of nostrils that close to each other? I go, that's dumb.
If one gets plugged up, he's got another set.
But also it's a dumb design. It's lazy because they have mostly an ox head and they're like, oh, other than the feathers, we got to try to do something crow-like in the face. So all they did was take the upper half of the beak and just lay it on top of the ox nose. It's dumb. It's so dumb. It's dumb. It's dumb.
I still think it looks cool. So
I disagree. But I also, I think is stupid is that they're like, oh, what can we do with this guy? Let's give him a flying car that he has this ability to make certain objects fly. And one of the most hilarious moments comes when he and Kamen Rider are fighting at one point. Kamen Rider goes, Crowax, there's not enough room in here for us to fight. Let's go outside. I'm like, what? Who talks that way? Hey, there's not enough room in here to fight. Let's go outside.
Apparently, Kamen Rider says it that way.
And then this episode is full of the giggles because then apparently Kamen Rider is killed, right? Because Crowax gets out and the flying car tumbles, apparently blows up. Taki comes, finds what's called the muffler, the scarf of Kamen Rider, and he tries to cry. And it's the most hilariously embarrassing cry I have seen in a long time in either a show or a movie. It is terrible. And then they have Tachibana a few moments later trying to cry too, and Taki brings the scarf back to him at the headquarters. And his ability to just try to cry on the spot is awful as well. It's terrible. And then again, come to find out, Kamen Rider survived. He somehow got buried in the dirt. Like,
yeah, I like how they just, put all that dirt
zombie rider
on him. Yeah, it's like he was just coming out from a grave there.
What was the episode? I don't think it was this one. I think it was one of the ones that comes later where there was a line by one of the writers that said Kamen Rider is invincible, or someone on the writer team said Kamen Rider is invincible. It comes in, I think, in one of the later episodes. I remember that line because I go, oh, great. Like, yeah, I mean, I knew Kamen Rider was going to win the day when everything was said and done. But the fact that they come out and say,
maybe either the next episode or 97.
Yeah, because one of the episodes they mentioned, like someone said that, and I go, look, like I knew he was going to win the day, but when you actually come out and say something like that, that just kind of ruins it more, because it basically means, oh, anything you throw. And I mean, look, we've survived 95 episodes. Like I've seen almost everything here. And I know he's going to survive, but when you actually throw out something like that, even though in my mind, I know that any situation he finds himself where he's in peril, I know he's going to live. But when you come out and say your hero is invincible, that sort of kills any small part of me that may think, oh, maybe he's like seriously injured this time at least. Like I know he's not going to die, but maybe he's seriously injured and handicapped. Although we saw something like that in a batch of episodes a couple podcasts ago. But it ruins that mystique about that character. It's one of the reasons why I like a lot of newer Superman material in recent years, because they try to make Superman more vulnerable than he was in years past. And when you come out and just say Kamen Rider's invincible, it's like, okay, like, why do I care now? And it's dumb. I mean, that comes at a later episode, whatever. Who cares? Honestly, who cares? But
yeah. 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 Like what Kent said with these three batches of episodes before the final episode, just when I watched it and then told Ken about it, was like, it just really threw me for a loop, because it just really it seemed like that they effed up the order of these episodes with, was it the last four, I think it was, or three episodes that should have led up to the final episode, but it just to me, it really kills the mood of, leading up to the final boss or the leader here. And now we're going back to basics with the same formulaic episodic garbage here. So I'm going to give this one a D- for what it's worth, and just really throwing you for a loop and really effing up the order of the episodes.
I'm going to preface my rating, which is going to be not great for most of these episodes here, but mainly episodes 95 through 97, by saying that again, because these were out of order, and all of a sudden it's like they're not looking after the leader anymore. Like that went away. There's no recollection of it. It's like what happened over the last 2 or 3 previous episodes never happened. And if these episodes were earlier in the series, I would give them a better grade. And unfortunately, because they are where they're at, I have to give them a lower grade, because what they did building up to the final episode, and even though it wasn't handled all that great, they at least were moving towards that. The fact that 95 through 97, there's no advancement at all of trying to figure out who the leader was, because that was a big thing that they had for about 2 or 3 episodes at least, and that they were moving towards, look, like, we got to find their base. We got to end this once and for all. That's done.
Yeah.
At this point, and until the very last episode. And my grade is going to reflect that. And so I'm giving this one an F2.
I'll at least give episode 97 a little bit of credit, because it's pretty much a prequel to the final episode
in a small way, I would argue.
Yeah, because it starts off with where episode it leaves off to where episode 98 picks up from.
So actually, you know what? Let me redo my grades for the first couple episodes we covered. Instead of an F, I'll give them a D-, because at least even though they were doing it poorly, they at least were moving in the right direction. So I'm going to revise my grades on those episodes that we just covered before 95 here. So, yeah. Okay. So episode 96, Takeshi Hongo turned into a cactus monster. In a sinister plot, Gel Shocker attempts to transform Takeshi Hongo into a cactus-themed monster. Battling both physical and psychological challenges, Hongo fights to retain his humanity and thwart the organization's nefarious plans.
Yeah, with this episode, I'm gonna have to sort of remind you again, because they bring up the vaccine thing again, and Hongo helping out once more.
I got a thing to say about that.
I'll let you get to it.
So when we get to that point, and obviously it comes later in the episode, this doctor is turned into this cactus monster earlier in the episode. And the cactus monster, he's got a couple prongs on one of his hands where if he jabs you, you start turning into a cactus creature yourself, or a cactus person. And so there's this montage of people getting turned into cacti by this dude, and it's just hilarious. It's ridiculous. I honestly found it amusing. It's not done well, but it's amusing enough that it's like, oh, I'm laughing at it because this is so ridiculous.
By the way, the Shocker General name in this is called Cactus Bat.
Yeah, the Cactus Bat. It's not a great name, but it's a cool design. This one I do like. Mm-hmm. So Tachibana at one point earlier in the episode got pricked by this
by his own dumbness.
Yeah, I was about to say because he's an idiot. And so like one of his hands begins to start turning into a cactus. And so they go to this other scientist guy to kind of help him out. And Tachibana is even telling the doctor, like, look, just cut off my hand, use it to help create a vaccine and all that. Which is fine. Like they actually, in some respects, kind of fix their whole notion of what a vaccine is. Here's the thing, like, because Hongo himself got pricked in the episode as well. Hongo and Tachibana are with this other doctor to try to come up with some sort of solution. And they're kind of working through it, the regular room with test tubes of different colored chemicals and stuff.
It's like when I saw that particular scene, is like, I bet you $100 that Kim will probably start a tirade on this, like he did the last time when it came to vaccine stuff and Hongo working on it.
I gotta watch my language because wife and kids are around, but this was so fucking stupid. So they're working on it and nothing's working. And then, hold on here. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that interruption. He's going to get a butt smack later. Cactus Bat shows up and he knocks Tachibana, Hongo, and this doctor down to the ground, and he smashes up, the table that they have with all the test tubes of chemicals and what have you, and disappears. And, Cactus Bat's like, yeah, you'll never find a cure for it. Ha ha ha. And then disappears. And then what happens?
Voila!
It just is by some sheer happenstance.
Sheer
Hongo,
shit luck.
That's a t-shirt. Hongo, being knocked down on the floor.
It was actually Tachibana.
No, it was Hongo.
Are you absolutely sure of that?
No, you are right. It's Tachibana. Nevertheless, the culmination of some of these liquids having come together because they were broken on the table dripped down from the table onto Tachibana's hand, his cactus hand. It's a fucking miracle. There's a cure. And
hallelujah.
And then Hongo's like, Tachibana, your hand. It's like, oh. And all three of them get up, and Hongo says, Doctor, you did it. And I go, the doctor didn't do it. It was Cactus Bat by sheer accident. And I'm like, of course it's an accident. It's an accident. Because they're like, we're going to move it along here. Let's make this stupid episode move along here. Let's just, voila, the Cactus Bat does it because Cactus Bat is a moron. And everything just goes magic. It's a magic land, and everything is happy again. And then Hongo even gives this weird, stupid grin when he and the doctor are like, "Oh yeah, like we found it," and he's like, "It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's lazy. It's like, oh hey doctor, you didn't. No, he didn't do it. The doctor was a moron. He had all these failures. Doctor, you did it. No, everything got mixed up because Cactus Bat decided. And it just, it's so stupid. I hate this show. I hate it. I hate this show. And I hate this episode because it doesn't matter. I understand it's a kid's show, but there are kids. To me, this is even an insult to children because let me tell you something.
Things don't work out that way in real life.
Not just that, but kids are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. Okay. I remember as a kid, and I figured out certain things at a very young age. And I was kind of impressed with myself when I looked back. I'm like, wow, I actually was kind of smart then. I figured that thing out. And I've even seen with my kids, ages 10 and 8, where they are now, and then even in years past when they were even younger, how they're able to catch on to certain things and figure things out. It's amazing what they can figure out. And I think it's an insult to children even. This whole thing was stupid. It's like Cactus Bat, gah, gah, Tachibana, liquid drip, drip, drip. Oh, it's Doctor, you did it. Yeah.
I'll take
credit for what Cactus Bat did. Jason, please, take over for a moment.
Not much to add. I'm going to give this one a D-, because
this deserves a GFA. This deserves a GFA. Now remind everyone, in case they missed the last episode or the Zarkor episode, what that means.
It means God fucking awful. But that'll be for you. But That one was that one was reserved for episode 90.
You can give it to multiple episodes.
But get this one. Get this one. Towards the end. Towards the end of this episode, where Cactus. Oh no. I'm thinking of 2 episodes ahead. Never mind.
Didn't he do some sort of writer finishing move though in this one? Kind of like he did a few episodes ago when we did the last podcast, and the person didn't blow up because the writers are like, no, we need to save the human being who turned into the monster. He did some sort of like writer, whatever special move, whoever cares.
Something.
And like usually the monster of the week blows up, but this guy didn't. It's like the second one in 5 or 6 episodes to not blow up because the writers are like, no, we got to save this guy. We got to save him.
Yeah. And with this doctor guy, whoever he was interested in, the cacti and all that stuff, he's all of a sudden has some kind of amnesia and not even remembering what he did and all that stuff.
GFA, dude. I can't. If I start talking anymore about this episode, my tirade's going to return. Like, I can't.
Well, I'll probably refresh you on the one thing in the next episode, 97. If you want.
Why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me?
Well, if you go through the synopsis, then I'll tell you.
Episode 97, Takeshi Hongo cannot transform, nor do anything else. Following the previous ordeal, Hongo finds himself unable to transform into Kamen Rider. As Joe's chakra exploits this vulnerability, Hongo must overcome his limitations and rediscover his inner strength to continue to fight for blah, 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 blah.
So I like how they try to find the weakness of Kamen Rider just by using the footage from the production show and go through it on a projector. And then they find the weakness of him before transforming. Who could have thunk that? And then here's the real catch, though. At the very end of this episode, or towards the end of this episode, where Hongo is trapped in kind of that
box,
in this box-looking thing, where
because the leech.
Let me finish. Where it has a window, and you know that these windows have like glass or whatever it is. And when Hongo is trying to transform, for whatever reason, this foam that supposedly disables his transformation on the belt goes through this glass or box, whatever it is, and just
you know what? I honestly didn't catch that.
You got to go back and watch it.
Oh, I believe you. And you know what? I'm not going to go back and watch it.
and you telling me with the whole vaccine spiel that you always give. This is my tirade. This is my tirade. I mean, with fucking foam, with going through like sheer solid matter. And even glass too. What the fuck, man? Seriously.
You're creating all sorts of t-shirts this episode.
I like in that moment, it just threw me out of disbelief completely. And you talk about kids not believing in anything. They would not even believe fucking foam going through glass or metal sheets.
The thing is that one I honestly didn't catch. That one is one of those things where it's a whoopsie that I don't think most people honestly would like catch unless they were paying like extra close attention. So you can tell I obviously
fucking obvious. It's so fucking obvious. It's literally obvious right there in your fucking face. Sorry to curse and all that stuff, but with something this downright dumb and embarrassing, it's like, and even I have no words for it. Literally, I have no words for this. Even though I put a grade for an F, this is my GFA. I'm changing from an F to a GFA.
I'm giving it a D. I like the leech guy. I think he's pretty cool. And
what the fuck?
You change your grade from a couple episodes ago, then I'll change mine for this. We'll do a tit for tat. So yeah, it's subpar, definitely. I honestly didn't catch that in the moment when I was watching the episode, but yeah, it's stupid. I agree with you on that. Yeah, it's silly. I find the whole idea, the fact that it took him this long to realize that, first of all, it's not a weakness. It's just some type of a brief vulnerability for him to transform. I've always complained on here too, where why couldn't he transform faster? Like, why does he have to vamp for the camera when he does his rider pose to transform? Like, I always thought, couldn't it be like rider transform, like something like that? Like, you get it done in 2 seconds. Like, why does he have to go rider? That's just their whole thing. It's a vamp is what it is. They're telling the actor to vamp. I think really they're having him do that because they're trying to get the kids watching the show to kind of get excited, like, oh, he's going to turn into Kamen Rider, to try to get them excited for that part. Kind of like the whole He-Man transformation, how cool that was in the 80s. But you know what? Even for Prince Adam to turn himself into He-Man and his cat Cringer into Battle Cat took less time than it took for Hongo to turn into Kamen Rider. So whatever is in that belt, not as powerful as the Sword of Power from Castle Grayskull. So
it's just wind.
Eat that toy.
So what's your grade on this one?
I gave it a D.
No. Oh, yeah.
It's not great. No, it's not great. It's I don't know.
So let's finish this off.
Okay, it's the moment we've been waiting for. Gel Shocker's destruction, the leader's last day. In the series finale, Kamen Riders 1 and 2 launch a decisive assault on Gel Shocker's headquarters. Facing the organization's leader in a final confrontation, the Riders aim to dismantle the evil syndicate once and for all, restoring peace and concluding their arduous journey.
I really liked how Taki just left after this whole thing. But then also pulling off a Scooby-Doo on the leader, too. Like 3 times.
Okay. Let's talk about the leader for a moment.
Yes.
From my brief time and watching tokusatsu shows from beginning to end, shows, like the original Ultraman, Ultra Q, this, Iron King, Super Robot Red Baron, etc. There's only like a couple others that I've seen all the way through, and I can't think of them off the top of my head. Oh, like Neo, Ultra Q. I remember very clearly. And Super Robot Red Baron, they had a villain, the head boss, if you want to call them that, not being revealed. In fact, I think all he was shrouded in shadow, and all you could see were like his arms and hands, if I remember that correctly. It's been over a decade since I've seen that show. And I remember distinctly when towards the end of them defeating him, he took off like his gloves that he had been wearing all the way up to that time. And it was just a fleshy skeleton hand but you never did see his face. Like, we never knew who this guy was. But you know what? It didn't matter. It really didn't. Because I think the writers of that show realized, well, we're not going to pull a fast one. It's not going to be someone within the heroes group themselves that's going to be the leader. So we're not going to pull like some weird, shocking, fast one on the audience. That's just not what we're going to do. So it's just going to be kind of this nameless guy with hands and arms, and then eventually he takes off the glove. It's just a fleshy hand. So you could argue that is kind of disappointing to never know the guy. But with Kamen Rider, it's a little bit different. With Kamen Rider, the entire series, first of all, the head leader is a Klans member. And I believe we had this happen like 30, 40 episodes earlier, where there was like a gathering of these guys that looked like Klans members.
Well, it's into the Shocker. The whole organization is supposed to be based off remnants of the Nazi right and everything. So it sort of blends in with that whole thing. But then also, I just want to reiterate what I meant by doing the Scooby-Doo thing 3 times is that, you know, they pulled off not only the hood thing and then revealing this head of snakes or whatever, and then taking that off again and reveal this like monoclops, mouthless sort of thing. And that was it. It to me, with them pulling that whole stunt off, it felt like that they weren't entirely sure who really, how they really wanted this Shocker general leader to look in the very end, even though that they went to the monoclops guy.
A singular eye alien.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, that's kind of what I was getting at, was that they kept building it up, because periodically throughout the whole series, and they even spent like 3 episodes trying to figure out who the leader was. They made a big deal out of it, at least in 2 of the episodes. And so it made me think, oh, there is going to be some like interesting either twist or, no pun intended, shocker, where like maybe a former good guy of some sort became the head Shocker leader. That's not what it is. And all it is, first and foremost, we only see him on screen for like 30 seconds, if that. Okay.
Or a minute.
And they kept him hidden the entire series all the way up until this point, which led me to believe, I'm like, okay, not only are we going to see him, but who he actually is going to be a big deal, because we're not seeing anything. Like I said, in Super Robot Red Baron, the one villain, you at least saw him in shadow and him moving his arms and stuff, sitting behind a desk. There at least was a physical presence there. Here, there wasn't up until this very end. And while it was kind of neat, like the design of the leader being this white, one-eyed alien of sorts, the fact that it wasn't a shocking or really interesting reveal is the most damning thing about it, because again, they made such a big deal out of it.
And
going out, this guy is.
Yeah, going through almost 100 episodes leading up to a minute worth of him being revealed.
He's defeated quickly. He gives up because he knows Shocker has been defeated. So he more or less gives up. He doesn't really
and
fight
pretty much self-destructs the whole base in himself too.
And one of the funny things, this to me is one of the most, again, lazy writing. A moment earlier when he's first revealed in sort of a transparent form with his clan hood on him, he fires off like these 2 explosions. One that's actually behind the writers, and the next one is in front of the writers. Both explosions happen quite a ways away from the writers, but yet it hurts them. And then we move into the next sequence, into the Shocker base. And then the writers show up within 10 seconds. They're fine. Like they recovered. And yet just a second earlier, they were down on the ground. Everyone was like, no, riders. Like, we thought, oh, maybe they're like getting close to being totally defeated here. Even though I know, but it's like, oh, like the leader of Shocker is getting them down. But then they're fine. And then they confront the Shocker leader and go through this whole thing like we just discussed.
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out, we sort of forgot in the kind of around the first half of the episode that this Leech Chameleon Shocker General, it turns out to be General Black all along.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then, of course, they defeat him in a amusement park, and he does this really long, prolonged, like talk before dying and exploding.
Yeah, I mean, again, all this buildup over all these episodes, and I'm like, oh, like it's going to be a big deal, and then it turns out that it's not. And the writers recover like that after 2 explosions go off many yards in front of and behind them. But yet, okay, I'll go along with it. I'll play with your little game and believing that they got hit somehow. But okay, but then they recover like that. Like your heroes confronting the villains of your story is supposed to be the grandest, most spectacular, and I just forgot the term. Like most anticipated moment in the entire journey that you're telling your audience. Like, it doesn't matter who this guy. I'm like, oh, well, the design's cool, but who is this guy? He's like an alien, I guess. And then they don't even actually fight him. He just gives up. He's like, Shocker's defeated. I'm going to take you to hell with me.
And then the one thing, as I stated earlier, that the whole Shocker organization was built from the remnants of the whole Nazi regime and all that stuff. And then with him being a whole entirely monster himself, not a physical person or anything, is like, what does he have any relationship?
It makes no sense. Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense. It just doesn't. And I said something here. It was either last podcast or the podcast before where I said, okay, and I'll change that here in a bit. But I remember saying, okay, watch like roughly the first 20 episodes and then episodes like 91 through 98. Like that's all you need to watch a Kamen Rider.
Yeah,
that
I was the same.
I watched this batch.
Same.
I am going to say, no, forget what I said there. I'll revise that here in a moment when we go into final thoughts on this show. But it's like, no, like forget what I just said. It's about that.
So before we go into final thoughts on the whole series, what is your rating for episode 98?
Disappointment. That's my rating.
So
no, that goes, that's even greater than GFA. Disappointment, because I honestly was expecting something better. It's like, I thought, okay, like, yeah, like I'm willing to go along with all the stupid we've gone through this whole time, because I really did think, oh, we're going to find out, even if it was a character we had never met, but it was maybe going to be someone that maybe used to work with Tachibana and or Hongo earlier in their lives and then created the Shocker organization.
Yeah, that would have been a better twist.
Yeah.
Better writing.
It would have been stupid because we never would have seen that person before.
Yeah.
Even that whole idea would have had more emotional weight to it, because at least there would have been more of a personal connection between like Hongo, Tachibana, however they wanted to do that.
And also it's a physical person too, not just some random alien.
Like I honestly like, and I had the joke and I knew it wasn't going to be Tachibana, but I was like, yeah, it would have been great if it was Tachibana. I was like, it was somehow like
being the greatest method actor of all time.
Yeah. And it made And I sort of realized, anyways, like by and large, a lot of my time was wasted with this show. But I really thought, oh, if they could like go through with what I think they've been teasing this whole time, I'm like, I'll be willing to go with it. And I kind of thought it'll recover the series to some extent. Nope, it didn't. It made not just this episode disappointing, it made the whole series disappointing. It's sort of like, I don't know, like going to a movie or going to a theme park and you have these high expectations and you're at least expecting like to be thrilled or entertained. And then you come out of that theme park or movie and you realize just how, like, sometimes you're real angry, but a lot of times you're like me right now where you're just so disappointed at what you went through that you just can't help but to just kind of feel a little sad. But at the same time, just like you wasted your time and you feel disappointed by people that you put some form of faith in. And even though, yes, I have complained numerous times how the writing in the series is pretty bad, I really thought that at least when it came to the leader, they knew where they were going with that from the word go. And it's very apparent that they didn't. They just were like, I honestly think the truth is that they had no idea for like the year or 2 years that they produced this show. They're like, they probably were thinking in the back of their minds, oh, we'll get it figured out eventually. And they never did. And then they realized, oh, shoot, like the network that bought our show for 98 episodes, has us doing 98 episodes. And we're at episode 98 already. We don't know who our big bad is. And so they quickly scrambled, and this is what the result was.
And I think that's the reason why they sort of pull off the Scooby-Doo shtick.
That could be it too.
Doing, pulling off the hoodie. The hoodie thing with the head of snakes.
Medusa type thing.
And then you get the one-eyed alien after that. You can say it's evidence that they really had no idea
they didn't
who the actual leader was going to look.
And I don't care. I don't care if someone from the production team came on this podcast right now, or a huge mega fan of the series came on this podcast right now and tried to tell me otherwise, saying, no, they did. It's like, no, they didn't, because the evidence is right there on film. The evidence is right there on film. I just wasted 49 hours, math, 49 hours of my life over the last like year and a half watching this series. This is what it is. And it's like, I understand it's a kid's show, but even then you can't tell me there weren't some kids that, were disappointed by this. Like, it just,
we talked about it earlier with some of the things that we think kids wouldn't even believe.
It's disappointing. It's disappointing.
For me, I'm giving the final episode an F on it.
That means we got to move into the final, like, just kind of general overall thoughts on the series. Did you want to start off? Like, did we want a discussion? Like, how do we want to do this here?
Well, I would say, with how we've been discussing about it for the year and a half, I would say the biggest mistake that they've ever done was doing 98 episodes. It was a fatal mistake and just really watered the whole series down and just kind of ruined everything. I mean, they really had it going for the first 21 episodes, and they probably should have at least ended on 30 episodes.
Let's have a discussion here. Like, we'll bring up points.
Yeah. I'm just sort of mentioning about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because you bring that up, and I think that's a valid point, because that's something that I brought up quite a bit in recent podcasts where I kind of thought, okay, maybe in the final batch, the final X number of episodes, they'll ramp things up. And that's what it looked like it was going to do. And
first,
I thought, this is great. Like,
I think it was it
91, I think.
Yeah, episodes 91 and 92.
Yeah. And even I think 93 to some extent played around with it. But that's not what happened, though. I mean, sure. Look, kind of like I was saying a moment ago, where I said, okay, watch roughly the first 20 episodes and then watch episodes 91 through 98. Because at that time, I thought 91 through 98 was going to be this progressive build up into not only who the Shocker leader was, but the eventual destruction of Shocker and the leader. Obviously, that's not what happened. But then the reason why I said that, too, is because episodes like 21 through 90 are just fluff. It's the same thing that you just saw in the first 20-something episodes.
Although minus Hongo for a handful of episodes because of his accident.
Yeah, and the whole gel shocker thing, other than changing outfits and slightly tweaking shocker generals, which was kind of cool in some ways, Jizzwolf. It really was nothing that was really groundbreaking to change things up, to bring in new energy to this series that so desperately at that point needed it. And even then, Gel Shocker came in pretty late anyways. What was it, like episode, like the late 70s, early 80s, Gel Shocker came in, something like that?
Somewhere around there.
Don't look it up. It's not worth your time, Jason.
Maybe I could briefly because I'm on the Wikipedia. Keep going.
But yeah, I've said it before, this, and you've already kind of were saying it here just a second ago too, that this series overstayed its welcome. Mm-hmm. This was a series that, unless through the 98 episodes you were looking to change things up every chunk of episodes, like what Iron King did. Iron King was what, 26 episodes, and there were like 3 or 4,
something like that. Because I know, was it the first handful of episodes we were like, oh no, not sure about this and all that, but then it really picked up and turned out to be a great series.
Well, and then there were like 3 or 4 different bad guys just in that much shorter series.
Yeah.
Like Iron King, yeah, it has its flaws, but you know what? That was actually a pretty good series.
Yeah. It was episode 80 when Gel Shocker debuted.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. I mean, regardless, they came in late. But this series overstayed its welcome, and they didn't do anything else to try to change it up. Like, they didn't have them find the Shocker leader within the first 20 or 30 something episodes and then have a new baddie along the way, like what Iron King did. Mm-hmm. Maybe some don't like that, but I'm like, well, in a way, it's kind of neat because with Iron King, you could almost say there were 3 or 4 separate Iron King series there because there's a different batch of villains.
And the other thing, too, is that at the beginning of this entire series, they were kind of more or less focused on, you know, Hongo being in like the motorcycle competitions and the like. And then also there were some, you know, historical relations with the Shocker organization and the whole Nazi regime type of connection. But then later on, a lot of that stuff, for whatever reason, just vanished out of thin air.
And I thought with Hongo, they might have something with his story too, where they would either do something where he either no longer becomes a cyborg or he somehow tries to psychologically live with the fact that maybe he's going to be a cyborg forever and that he's always going to be Kamen Rider. But, and again, I understand it's a kid's show, but that still doesn't necessarily give it a pass for just utter stupidity and lack of good storytelling and good character work, because there was so much that could have been done had the writing team on this series been willing to put in the time and just had the guts to do it, where you could have had really dramatic moments. And I'm not talking about the really stupid dramatic moments like Taki trying to cry when he couldn't. And then same thing with Tachibana and then Hongo at various points. It was terrible. Like all the melodrama they attempted at various points in the series was awful. And just a lot of bad decisions along the way. The writing is not good. like there were so many opportunities to make something more meaningful, to have some messages, deeper messages involved here. And they just didn't bother with that. They're like, no, this isn't what we're about. Even though to some extent during the first 20 something episodes, it seemed as if maybe that's kind of what they were doing. But then they just said, screw it. We're just going to do a villain of the week.
Yeah.
And I just want to say this, though, too. I want to say this. I don't hate this series, but I certainly am not going to watch it again anytime soon. Part of it is just because we just got done with it. Yeah. But I don't anticipate watching it even a year from now, even 2 years from now. I enjoyed doing the commentaries with Jason here on this series, because sometimes when you get something this silly and ridiculous, it's fun to have someone else with it, because you could have fun. It ups the enjoyment a little bit and all that. And I will say too, I was saying earlier, I gave a lot of S to Ultra 7. And I may have to go back and revise that. I still stand by the fact that series is, in terms of its writing and storytelling, is not that great. But I would argue here, yes, the storytelling of Kamen Rider isn't great either. But in some ways, I like the ideas. I liked where this series was going the first 20-something episodes, because it did look like there was going to be deeper storytelling, deeper character work involved. And it was still cool. I mean, I knew it was going to be a Monster of the Week sort of thing for a while. And I was okay with that. I'm like, that's kind of what this whole thing is about. That's what a lot of tokusatsu type stuff is about. But I was okay with that. But with Ultraman and with some other tokusatsu series, there's usually character work along the way, and usually a grander story that's being told as well. Yeah, it might be long, but usually it does tend to pay off in the end. Mm-hmm. With Kamen Rider, it doesn't. It doesn't pay off, because none of Hongo's character work comes around. What the hell happened, like you said, to the bike racing? That just disappeared somewhere. I don't even know when it disappeared somewhere along the way. Yeah. A long time ago. That's all I know. And then they got these dumb kids involved, which the kids those provided nothing of.
Yeah. They came along just like Jill Shocker later into the series.
They were just nothing but foils to have Kamen Rider save periodically.
Although they had cool hats. I'll give them that.
Yes.
I want to maybe some medallions, but that's it.
But look, I enjoyed not just what I thought this thing was going through because of what the first handful of episodes were showing me, but I kind of like dumb stuff. I mean, I understand that this was going to be dumb, but I thought there was going to be a grander, better storytelling element to it, that I thought in the end, when we found out more about Shocker, that there was going to be something more to it. Like I said, maybe some character we saw earlier in the series, or maybe something that our heroes knew at some point, even though maybe we didn't see them. It was going to add higher personal stakes to the whole situation. No. And because of how they wrote that character, how they kept him, all he was a disembodied voice for 97 and a half episodes. And they didn't do that. And I don't mind Kamen Rider coming out, fighting a Shocker General of the Week, because some of that is fun. I liked some of this. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate this series, but I think more than anything else, and the more I keep thinking right now in this moment, this series, even if they kept everything that they did, okay, they didn't change anything. However, the only thing that they changed was they took out 60-ish episodes. Okay, let's just say that. The only thing they changed was take out 60-something episodes. You have the first 20-ish or so episodes, and then you bring in the final 10. that be better? I would say it would. It still would not be great because, again, there still would be that buildup of who is the shocker guy, and we need to find out who he is. But you know what? Because it would have been like 30-ish episodes, I wouldn't have spent all this time trying to figure out who is it. And at the same time, like you and I keep saying, it was the same thing with really no real changes over and over and over again.
And just really no improvements at all, even to the very end.
Its biggest weakness was being 98 episodes / bad writing or non-creative writing. Because
it's a non-improvement. Yeah.
Yeah, because you could look at it two ways. Its biggest failure was either being too long or just being uncreative. I would say both are correct. Both elements are correct. Yeah, both are right. Because there are plenty of shows out there that run 100, 200 plus episodes, even more than that. And you know what? They gradually change a little bit over time.
Even if they're episodic episodes,
right?
Still do a little bit of improvements here and there, but subtle.
This didn't. And I think, okay, well, since you're not willing to be creative, if you took out 60 something episodes, threw in the first 20 something, and then added the final 10, it would be a little bit more tolerable because it'd be shorter.
I would say the only little subtle changes that they've done through the course of this entire series was a different setting compared to the whole motorcycle thing. And then he had the rider girls in there, and then the kid core. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, this was a series.
I would say changes for the wrong reasons. On that front.
The series is fun up to a point. And I'm just telling everyone right now, especially if you are someone who has not watched Kamen Rider yet, at least this original series, and are thinking about it, I would say to you, don't go through all 98 episodes unless you have nothing else better to do, or you consider yourself a completionist like I am. Sometimes you're like, no, I have to, because if I don't, like, it's going to bug me. It's just going to kind of eat away at me if I don't. I'm just warning you right now, it's not worth going through all 98 episodes. I would say watch the first 10 to 15 episodes and then watch the very last episode. And I want you to be spoiled about this because I want you to understand you're not going to be satisfied or happy about the show.
Yeah, because
it doesn't matter, because the show said, this is what we think about you and your expectations. And we don't care what you think about our build up to this.
Yeah,
because we think of you, because you know what?
Well,
you're going to watch our thing anyway.
It's just, I always hate to, be a dead horse with a stick on what I've said countless times, and what Kent has too, is that most of the stuff in between the first 20 or so episodes and then leading up towards the last 10, 5 episodes is all episodic, same formulaic, same shtick, maybe just different monsters in each episode, and then obviously maybe a different Kamen Rider because the guy plays as Hongo had an accident and was out of commission for a while, and then you had Ichibonji in there for a little bit. Other than that, it's pretty much the same in between the first 21 episodes and the last 10 or 5 episodes. You're not going to get yourself anywhere unless you hate yourself. That's the only reason that you probably be watching it. But yeah, it's not really worth your 48 hours of your time.
49.
49, whichever, of your time to watch all 98 episodes of the original Kamen Rider series.
It's not. And I gave Spectre Man a C when we got done with that series. That series. Here's the thing, and I'm going to lean in because I'm going to be serious here for a moment.
Now, I was going to ask you, what would you prefer between the Kamen Rider?
Here's the thing, like this is going to be somewhat of a cop-out response because Kamen Rider is so ridiculously long that there are certain things about it that aren't as consistent on some level as there is about Spectre Man, which, yeah, it was like, 63 episodes? That's still pretty long. Here's the thing, like, if I'm looking at writing, if I'm looking at things in terms of, like, really trying to invest myself in story and characters, the first 20-something episodes of Kamen Rider are much better than anything Spectre Man ever did in its 63-episode run. Because the one thing consistent about Spectre Man was it was pretty schlocky writing from beginning to end. But then Kamen Rider really, like I said, this is what the writers and creators said to us because they knew they're laughing. I guarantee you they were laughing at the end of that 98th episode because they're like, we got all the eyeballs and stuff. We don't care if you're mad. But
I would say when it comes to Spectre Man, they had some memorable characters.
Spectre Man was fun and amusing in a good way. Yeah, there were times you laughed at the darn thing.
Oh, yeah.
There were times you laughed at the darn thing. And maybe some of the problems with Spectre Man 2 were some bad dubbing, like maybe using wrong words when they should have used the more accurate Japanese words that they were trying to. And, you know, the version we watched, of course, we had talked about there being some episodes where it was clear sections got cut out for American audiences. But you know something? Spectre Man was fun. It was stupid fun. I loved Karas. I loved Dr. Gory. George.
And mind you that these two series were running side by side in the same year.
Yeah. And George, while being kind of ridiculous in a square at times, was decent. And his environmental group or whatever, yeah, towards the end there, they didn't give a hoot about their actual mission. They just kind of were there. Like,
but also the creator, Spectre Man, he was kind of an ass.
Yeah.
For the majority of the time.
Yeah. And look, Spectre Man, I gave that a C, and it was a problematic series in its own right, but it was more fun. It was really more fun. And with Kamen Rider, I stopped having fun a long time ago. Part of it was because the show built me up into believing that there was going to be more substance to it. And then they just kind of poo-pooed that. But they still kept building. They kept telling me anyways that they were building up to some sort of big reveal of who the Shocker leader was. And that turned out to be garbage. But then on top of that, too, for a 98 episode run, no real changes along the way.
Well, it not only it wasn't really much fun to watch it was just boring
because it was the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you got a different cyborg of the week. Okay, like maybe the suit is fun, the powers may be amusing or stupid, but otherwise it's the same thing. There for the longest time. Part of the reason why we did the whole little over-under thing was because we were kind of making fun of the series because for many episodes it was always the finishing move was always right or kick,
and then him riding off into the sunset.
Yeah,
right at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and yeah, the explosions, even though they kind of backed away from that a couple times towards the end because purposes that make no sense, but like we were kind of in a very backhanded way poking fun at the series because that right there was clear evidence there was a lot of lazy writing to this show. And I am giving, like I said, partial apologies to Ultra 7, because even though I think that series looked beautiful and stuff, and yeah, the writing still wasn't great, it at least was doing something different than what Kamen Rider even attempted after X number of episodes. Mm-hmm. Because Kamen Rider never changed. It lasted way too long. Outside of lack of creativity, the other big weakness of this series was was it being too long, especially when you weren't going to change things up after a while. And it's disappointing. Like I said about the last episode, I said it not only describes how I feel about that final episode, but it describes, at that point, it made me realize that's how I feel about the whole series. You know how some people grow up and they say like the harshest things or the things that hurt most from them that their parents ever said to them wasn't some sort of like calling them a name or anything like that. It was that their parents told them at some point they were disappointed in their kid. Like that is kind of the thing that like struck that person at that moment. It's like, that's how I feel about Kamen Rider. I'm disappointed. And it's all the show's fault. It's all the show's fault. Because this thing it started off really, really good.
Yeah, I was hoping to like it because, for many years I, see the whole suit and everything and even some snippets of the newer Kamen Rider stuff, although that's not in relation to what we're talking about now. But over the years leading up to us finally getting into the whole Kamen Rider franchise, and just with the first impression is just like, is this going to be sort of the thing if we keep going into the franchise? Even some of the newer stuff, who knows? And just thinking about whenever we dive our feet into the whole Super Sentai thing, I know you've probably have seen on through a couple of the Super Sentai stuff, because I think you've got, was it one or two?
I've got I think
sets.
I've got anywhere between 4 to 6 sets.
Yeah, and with Super Sentai being made by the same company, Toei, as Kamen Rider here, is like,
I'm telling you right now, I went through the first disc of the original Super Sentai, which is like the first disc had something like 6 or 8 episodes. That was better.
Okay.
But see, too, you have to remember, you and I grew up watching Power Rangers.
Well,
Power Rangers.
Well, Power Rangers, it's
I understand
a little bit different.
I understand. But
so.
you know what? Even if they were to do something similar to Kamen Rider, I think we would have caught on after a while, and we would still be in the same situation. Like an American company like Saban did with Power Rangers, you can't undo like the whole unmasking of the Shocker Leader at the end. You're still, as a viewer, like they're still going to leave that in, and you still, as a viewer, are going to be like, that was terrible. You built up all this time to that, and this is what you did with that. Like, and I'm saying right now, like Super Sentai is definitely better.
And I hope, like, whenever we get to Beetleborgs or whatever it is.
Forgot about those.
I know we sort of got around to that thing some like back in the 90s.
You did. I didn't. I saw snippets of a few episodes. I'm like, nah. I kind of, my attitude about Beetleborgs was kind of how my attitude was years ago, where I'm like, that's a Power Ranger knockoff. I'm not going to watch that.
Not only you were that way with Beetleborgs, but like you said, Gamma, but also Ultraman too, for years.
I was like with Ultraman.
Yeah, you were that way towards Ultraman or Superhumans Samurai in a way.
No, because growing up, I watched the American version of Superhuman Samurai. I loved that show. And Ultraman, I had that one Ultraman toy growing up. I was definitely curious about. I was concerned I might not like it. That's why I stayed away from it for a while. Because I didn't know if I would like it. But I didn't look at it like Gamera and Beetleborgs. I'm like, that's a ripoff garbage. Like, I'm not going to spend my time on that. That's not how I was with Ultraman. And like, I don't know. I have Gridman.
You're sort of
No, I admit with Gamera, I was like, no, I'm not going to like, I liked a couple of the movies way back in the day, but I thought otherwise most of it was garbage. But then, yeah, like around 2012, my opinion on all that changed. But back to Kamen Rider. Again, I'm going to give this series a bad grade because it is not only too long, it's unimaginative in terms of just for as many episodes as they have, they didn't do much of anything else to try to keep viewership engagement. Like they just didn't. I don't care if their main audience were kids. Like you can't tell me kids after a while are going to get tired of the same thing. Yeah, I remember as a kid, I could watch a movie literally 5 or 6 times back to back and be okay with it. But after a while, you, even as a kid, are like, okay, I've seen this enough times. I need to move on to something else. Kamen Rider doesn't do that. Kamen Rider also is so disappointing because it started off with great storytelling that I thought could even rival Ultraman, the original Ultraman series. I remember when you and I, Jason, when we were alternating between Spectreman 1 podcast, next episode, Kamen Rider, we were doing that for a while. I remember even saying then, like, I'm like, oh, Kamen Rider is definitely better than Spectreman. Spectreman is more amusing though, but Kamen Rider is better. Wow. like, and I'm not going to go through the spiel. I'm not going to do that again because I already said it earlier. I'm like, Spectreman is a better series because it's more amusing. It's not greatly written, but you know what? At least it knows what it was and it stuck to it and it did it well. And it had more engaging characters. Kamen Rider said, forget about all that after a while. Yeah. And that's disappointing. I don't hate the series, but I'm terribly disappointed in it. And I still maintain, even though it's technically not a TV series, I'm counting it as such. The Ultraman anime is the worst tokusatsu I've ever seen. This is second worst that I've seen so far. I will eventually go back and watch this series because I do think there is some charm to it. I do like some of the general conceptions of this series, but I now know what I'm getting myself into. It'll probably be a number of years before I even go back and revisit this thing. Part of it's because I got a bunch of other things I need to get to.
For me, at least 5 years from now, that's not going to be like the exact time.
Yeah. And plus, I'm very curious about Kamen Rider V3. That's only 39 episodes. And I just, I like it up to a point. But then kind of past episode 20 something, then it starts getting old. Because not only is it the same thing, that's when they start dropping elements of Hongo and Tachibana's stories. The motorcycle racing at some point is totally gone, never mentioned or really revisited again.
Some of the elements, like the Nazi regime elements in connection to the Shocker organization, is pretty much dropped.
A lot of character work gone. And there's just I could have gone along with it and more or less have been a little bit more forgiving of the series had they at least along the way, like maybe every 10 or 15 episodes, tried to instill some new blood into the series, making it different.
They sort of did with Ichimonji there, but
they had to.
Yeah.
They had to. That's the thing. They were forced to, because I know they were under a contractual obligation to produce 98 episodes over a certain period of time for a network, which meant, oh crap, we have to produce 2, 3, 4 episodes in a week. We got to find a quick replacement. They're not going to care that the actor playing Hongo is injured. They're going to be like, not our problem. So I'm not putting that on Toei, but it just, I don't hate the series, but I'm disappointed. I have partial apologies to Ultra 7. You are not worse than Kamen Rider, I will say that, but you are third worst. Right. Kamen Rider second worst. I gave, I think, Ultra 7 overall an F. I'm going to revise that to like a D, maybe a D plus, but I'm giving Kamen Rider a very low D. I can't quite give it a D minus because there is enough there, at least early on, to at least keep it afloat just a little bit.
Yeah,
that's where I sit.
Yeah, a D for me is a pretty good grade for the Kamen Rider 1971 series. It's just, yeah, the whole 98 episodes just really, I think, tarnishes the whole series in and of itself, just with so much filler that it doesn't even matter.
98 episodes of non-creativity.
And I would say maybe 70, because the first handful of episodes up to 20 odd number of episodes were really good, but then just dropped and just never really recovered from it ever again. Even with the final episode, just trying to, kill off the leader, and you don't even know how you want the leader exactly look by pulling off the Scooby-Doo mask thing 3 different times is really telling in that regards. And also having episodes 91 and 92, and I think was it all the way to 94, I think we're supposed to be the lead up to the final episode, but then you have basically the same formulaic 3 episodes after that, before the final episode, is just really telling that they really screwed things up order-wise, and never really hear from Anti-Shocker Alliance again. And yeah,
I know I said it with Ultra 7, that Ultra 7 was a mess of a series. And again, for the umpteenth time, I give some apologies to Ultra 7. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but for some people, it may seem like I don't like any tokusatsu shows. It's like, that's not true. I have issues. I mean, anytime, even with like a 12 episode series, not every episode is going to hit. Like even Twilight Zone, my favorite series of all time. There are a handful of episodes in that series I don't care to watch for one reason or another.
I mean, we liked, Iron King. Iron King's really good. Was it Red Baron? That one was pretty good for what I can remember.
Even from what I can remember, I was a little bored with it kind of initially, but along the way, that was a series that actually got better as it went along. And then
Johnny
Sacco's fun.
Yeah, that one was fun. I mean, there are other TV shows that we've done in the past that were pretty good, But yeah, there's
man.
But then there are some stinkers.
Yeah. We've been covering quite a few stinkers lately. Yeah. Although Spectre Man, like I said, I gave a C. But yeah, like I'm just disappointed. But with all that said, we're returning to Kamen Rider for our next podcast in a couple of weeks.
Although that's Shin Kamen Rider, so
yeah, Shin Rider. So we're gonna discuss that movie.
Yeah, so hopefully that's not a disappointment. But from what we've seen in the first 5 or so minutes in one of the YouTube videos that we've seen, it was pretty gory.
Well, and I'm not going to repeat what I said about an episode or two ago, but I'm going into this movie not expecting to like it.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of go into low expectations.
The one good thing about that is that because your expectations are so low, the movie can't do anything but to potentially impress you. So, like the saying goes, the one good thing about being down, the only way to go is up. So it's like we're doing the movie a favor. Like,
even though I said that in the previous episode when it came to episodes 91 and 92, where I thought, well, with episode 90 being a GFA for a rating for me, and it's like the only way to go to start from bottom is to go up, and the whole series just went into thought.
Well, the problem is that it's a TV series, so you're talking about episodes, numbers of episodes, whereas a movie, it's one thing, not numerous things.
Yeah, but still.
Yeah. So that's what's on the docket is Shin Rider. That's going to be in a few weeks. Jason's going to be gone for a while.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when we're going to get together to discuss that, but that's what's next.
I would say at the earliest, it would be June 7th because I'll be on vacation. Won't return until the final day of this month. So,
okay. And then you and I, by that time, my kids are going to be done with school and start some break. Holy crap. Then we got to be, oh, dear God. Then we need to figure out too what we're going to do after Shin Rider.
Well, I know you mentioned about, I think one of the Jurassic Worlds or trying to finish that up. Yeah,
we have 2 commentaries left with that. We have yet to do discussions on that series. So we could even go back and do discussions on that because there's a new Jurassic World movie coming out in July. So we could, after we're done with commentary, go and do discussions on them, although that would be redundant after.
Yeah.
It'd be better to save those maybe down the line to do discussions. But we'll figure something out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I know we've got other commentary stuff of Godzilla movies that we still haven't gotten around to.
We still haven't done New Empire and -1. But yeah, like it would be nice to do some more discussions of something. I will go through like my list and stuff, and I'll just kind of contact you and we'll just kind of figure some things out from there. I know you got some Ultraman series as well. We could maybe work through
not only Ultraman, but it would be nice to kind of dive our feet into Super Sentai.
I've got, like I said, I've got the first like 4 or 6. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I need to get around to buying some of that here, and then yeah. And then of course some more Kamen Rider
V3. Maybe we make it a Kamen Rider year. Yeah. Where we dabble a little bit in like Jurassic World, we do the 2 commentaries, maybe even talk about Rebirth. Well, that'll be maybe our first Jurassic World discussion is Rebirth, and then go back to Kamen Rider.
But it would be nice to kind of do discussion on Super Sentai for words.
We can discuss it.
We'll kind of need to figure out how to do kind of reformat the whole discussion portion as far as
I don't want to
TV
do this again in terms. Yeah, I don't think it's not only I don't think it's not only good for us. I don't think it's good for the listeners either.
Yeah, kind of doing a repeat, and even like going episode by episode too. I kind of feel like should maybe kind of do like first half kind of thoughts or something of the sort. We'll have to figure something out.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining. We hope you enjoyed it, even though we kind of pissed all over it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be back in a few weeks. Hopefully Shin Rider is actually at least decent.
Yeah. And before we leave, if you see a subscribe button down below or above, wherever you're watching us from, YouTube, Rumble, and one of the other video sharing sites, make sure you hit that subscribe button and smash the like button. And if you listen to the audio versions of our episodes, make sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, all those various platforms. And you can catch both video and audio versions of our episodes right on our own website at gogokaijushow.com.
All right. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you here in several weeks.
All right. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.